Hugely in Debt. Hingað er kominn William K. Black, hann bandarískur fjármála eftirlitsmaður, höfundur bókar sem kom út fyrir nokkrum árum og heitir The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. Þessi bók fjallar það sem hét Savings og Loans skandalinn í Ameríku sem hann rannsakaði. Við komum inn á það hérna á eftir. Viðtalið við Pettiford tók ég hérna fyrir vikunni, þannig að það var textað en Black hérna komin í beina útsendingu, þannig að þetta viðtal verður textað hér í endursýningunni og svo væntanlega á netinu. William, welcome to Iceland.
Thank you.
You are a former senior regulator, now you're a university professor. You were involved in the savings and loan crisis in the 80s. You are here to give a lecture which will take place at the University of Iceland tomorrow. The title of the lecture is Why Economists Must Embrace the F Word. What is the F word?
This is the F word you can talk about in polite company. This is the 5-letter one, fraud.
Yes.
But economists have not had a theory to deal effectively with fraud. They've ignored it. They've assumed that it couldn't happen. And it produces recurrent crises, and so it's critical that they take it seriously and develop real theories.
You are of the opinion that fraud has been committed on a large scale before the credit crisis. Well, can you explain that to me?
Sure. In the United States context, this is mostly a story of mortgages, and particularly the subprime and the liar's loans, as they were called. So it's, you know, if they're called liar's loans, probably there's a problem there, and indeed there was. Our Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, began warning publicly in September 2004, years and years ago, that there was an epidemic of mortgage fraud developing. Their words. The way you optimize that kind of fraud is to grow extremely rapidly. In the United States, we call this a Ponzi scheme.
Ponzi scheme, yes.
Right? And you loan to people who can't pay you back because they will pay the higher interest rates and they will pay higher fees, and then we call it leverage. This is borrow like crazy so that your return on equity can go up massively. If you do those three things, and a bunch of you do at the same time, you will create a financial bubble, and you will guarantee that you will have record profitability. And then that kicks into the compensation system, which is completely out of control in the United States, but is out of control in many places, where there are perverse incentives from this ability to create this fictional income. You can get absolutely rich in only 2 or 3 years with the executive compensation, and then the place fails, but you're left a rich person.
So this was fraud committed by the top, those at top, the big companies, the CEOs of the big companies.
That's right. It's by far the greatest losses occur when the CEO is the crook. We call it in criminology control fraud, because the person who controls a seemingly legitimate corporation but is really an illegal enterprise designed to loot. And there's a Nobel Prize winner, George Akerlof and Paul Romer in the United States, who wrote it just that way. The title of their article, and this is back in 1993, is Looting, Bankruptcy for Profit.
Yes.
So the profit, of course, goes to the CEO. The rest of us are left with the losses.
But this is you get famously rich by fraudulent lending practices.
Yes.
By lending money to people who can't pay, or
yes, and this is not just a U.S. phenomenon. I mean, you can look at Russia. No one much doubts that there was fraud and corruption in abundance in terms of making the plutocrats that you see, and some of whom were fairly tightly involved with key Icelandic bankers in all of this. You can look to what we call the Washington Consensus in Latin America, which made lots of people rich through frauds as well.
But it's the system, so the system has not been dealing with it. What about the regulators?
Well, the regulators at one time actually did deal with it, and then the book in part is how do you deal with it.
This is the saving loans crisis.
Right, but just as an example of how you combat these kind of control frauds, we got 1,000 felony convictions of senior insiders. So these are elites, and that's that's the greatest success against elite white-collar criminals there's ever been. And we did it in two ways. One, we realized that optimizing this kind of accounting fraud, and the weapon of choice is accounting to do these frauds,
Yes.
produces a distinctive pattern that honest banks don't follow. And so we identified the fraudulent ones even while they were reporting record profits,
Yes.
and moved to put them out of business. The second thing is we realized any of these have an Achilles heel, and the Achilles heel is growth. A Ponzi scheme must grow very rapidly or it dies, so we restricted growth and we killed all the Ponzis.
But this time the big banks were involved because everything was merged, the commercial side of the banks and the venture side of it. And
Well, it was worse than that. We had the Bush administration, and the Bush administration absolutely didn't believe in regulation and didn't believe that regulation was necessary. So we have famous conservative economists and lawyers who have created policy, and their statement is that a rule against fraud is not necessary or even particularly important, right? So they had this bizarre belief that markets, prevent all frauds, but if frauds gain a competitive advantage, if cheaters prosper, then markets drive honest businesses out of the marketplace and become dominated by the crooks.
but will this be investigated or dealt with, do you think?
Well, in where? It's happening in many places.
Yeah.
Tunneling in Eastern Europe was the famous version of it. In the United States, despite the FBI warnings, what happened is the September 11th terrorist attacks on the United States responded by taking 500 FBI agents who specialized in white-collar crime and transferring them to the anti-terrorism. You can understand that, but then the Bush administration refused to replace them. And so white-collar prosecutions are down dramatically. In the regulatory ranks, the head of our key supervisory agency that dealt with most of these worst mortgage providers famously came to a press conference with a chainsaw next to the three leading lobbyists for the banking industry with pruning shears. And they were poised over a pile of federal regulations to demonstrate their intention to destroy all regulation. Well, they succeeded, and we now know what happens when you destroy banking regulation. You get the greatest amount of fraud and the greatest economic crisis in anybody's lifetime.
So you think that fraud is one of the reasons of the crisis?
It's a dominant reason, actually, of the crisis. And it leads first, of course, to this first stage fraud in things like mortgages and things like home loans and things like, in the Icelandic context, more business loans, especially business loans to affiliates.
Yes.
Right? These are the sweetheart insider deals. But then you have to cover up the losses. So there's a second phase, the cover-up phase, where you engage in accounting fraud to hide the real losses. And since these are publicly traded companies, certainly in the U.S. context, when you do that, that is a felony to engage in securities fraud. And I think that there are a number of potential criminal responses here in Iceland as well.
Well, yes, what about Iceland? Iceland became sort of the victim of what you could call casino capitalism.
Right. In fact, it's the leading example in world history of casino capitalism, that you don't really need a real economy, that you can have a banking sector that is 10 times your gross domestic product, and that all of that can be real and can make everyone fabulously wealthy. And you saw the numbers. Iceland was supposedly the top of the charts in the world on quality of living and economics.